Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by Mike Jezoshek, CPA, brand ambassador at Insight, and also founder and host of the Small Business Tax Saving Podcast. For those of you who don't know, Insight is a full service accounting practice located out of West Palm Beach, Florida, offering accounting, bookkeeping, taxation, payroll, and advisory services. Mike and his team are industry leading practice that puts technology first for small, medium business owners. Mike also doubles up, as I mentioned, as the founder and host of the Small Business Tax Saving Podcast, which has a mission of helping hardworking business owners overcome complicated taxation rules, which can often lead to overinflated tax bills. Thanks for joining us today, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited.
Awesome. So look, to kick things off, we're really keen to understand how Insight chooses which apps to specialize in. We've spoken to a few firms on this, and typically there's a multi-layered approach that they do take. They try to balance, obviously, those apps that will give them, time saving on the more manual, archaic business processes that plague the accounting industry. And then also look for those that will increase their business from a proposition basis, and then obviously increase margins. Really keen to understand what approach Insight takes to that.
Yeah, and I think really it comes down to is first kind of finding out what that core is. And so, I think when we look at core, it's like, what does every business owner need? What are something that pretty much everyone has to live by? And so when we look at core, we're thinking, a basic accounting software, so something that can create a profit and loss, create a balance sheet. We're looking at payroll, we're looking at a tax software, and those types of things. And in that core, I feel is like something that you have to spend a lot of time in and really kind of feel the software that you want to be as part of your core. And so we spent a lot of time in trying out different things, as well as, getting to know some of those higher end software providers in that core. Example is like a Xero or Gusto for payroll and things like that. So I think that core is something that, whether you're just starting out in the cloud-based or not, that is a piece that you definitely have to take the time in the beginning and find out, what software am I going to specialize in? And I think, as it is in many different countries, there's likely different options. For example, in the US, we have QuickBooks Online and Xero are probably some of the most common. And, we had to make a decision when we first started our firm is which one are we going to take on and say, this is where we're going to have the core of our financials. So I think that core piece is one part that we look at, but the secondary piece is, okay, now we have that core. What type of add-ons are we going to bring in to help complement that core? Xero does great accounting software, but they might not be good at inventory, or they might not be good at pulling in sales transactions from various different merchant processors and things like that. And so when we look at that non-core type software, it's really oftentimes going to be industry specific. What type of clients do we have? What industry are they in? And what are their biggest pain points? And so that's part of our onboarding process with a client, is saying, what are the pain points that you're dealing with right now? You're coming to us, assuming the client's not brand new and they've been in business for a while, they're coming to us for a reason. And that's either because they had a poor experience at another firm, or they weren't kind of meeting their needs, or they were maybe just doing it themselves and felt like they're getting overwhelmed, or financials are incorrect, or whatever it might be. So we kind of look at those core experiences, and oftentimes that's going to lead to a software that can help solve that. And so that when we're looking at evaluating that, it's really there's a lot of different options out there. So it's kind of looking at the options that are out there, testing them out, and saying, okay, which one does our team enjoy? Which one integrates well with our core? And so I think that's another key piece, is that once you have your core, you limit some of those options. You might, for inventory, have 150 software add-on options. But now when we're saying, okay, our core is using Xero, or our core is using QuickBooks, whatever it is, well, that list might go down to 125 or something like that. So you're automatically minimizing that. And then you're saying, okay, which ones integrate the best, and how does it look from there? For us, It's always been, from the beginning, is cloud-based. We're a cloud-based firm. We've been cloud-based since 2013. And so that has been always our key, is that if the software is desktop or requires any type of desktop app, and desktop apps are fine as long as there's a cloud version too. But if it requires that, that's usually something we're saying, okay, that's a software we're going to put to the side for us.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very much so a top-down approach, whereby if we use Xero as an example, you'll say, okay, Xero is the core. What what integrations talk to Zero? What's going to streamline your business's processes into Zero for different clients? And it's interesting to say that because you mentioned it's different sector by sector. So Inksight obviously doesn't discriminate when it comes to sectors, right? It's serving the mission to help small business owners more broadly. Are there any apps that you typically see or have seen in the past that are just so underrated by other accounting practices that really do help your firm shine above the rest?
Yeah, and a lot of times it's, some of those apps aren't even forward facing or something that the client would necessarily see. And,
Mm,
and some of the ones that are integral to our business, and I almost consider these part of the core. But I'd be surprised when you talk to other accountants, it's like, no, they're not utilizing this type of software piece. And so project management internally at our firm is something that our firm, I don't believe, would be able to operate from. But I look back at when we started and we were using Excel docs for project management and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, there are people out there, whether they're just getting started, been doing this for a while, that just don't know the power of stuff that's out there. So, another good example is proposals and getting those out to clients that when you're presenting a proposal or collecting payment information and things like that. So, for project management, we use a software called Teamwork, and that has just really been something that ties everything together. Again, that's something that's not really client facing per se, but the client is in a way interacting with it, even though they might not know they are. And so
mm,
I combo that and the reason I say that is we use Teamwork as a project management system, but we also use Teamwork Desk, which is almost like an email management system. And so whenever a client or anybody reaches out to us via email, it comes into a shared inbox. So anyone on our team can access any of those emails. And then from there, we assign out to who it's related to.
sure.
So if you reach out to me, you want to contact me, your email's going to come in a shared inbox. We're going to assign that to me where then I'm going to be able to respond to you. It also allows us as a team to collaborate on email or a specific ticket without the client, having to know about what we're collaborating on. So it's not forward facing, but also it's all in one area. So if we ever need to look back and be like, hey, what did we talk about a year ago? Or what are some of the conversations that we've had recently with this specific client? We can find it all in one area. And so that is one, what I would say software, and that's more like an internal piece more than an external piece that we have had a lot of success with, as well as that kind of that proposal management. We used to kind of create everything in a PDF format or a Word doc and export to PDF, send it out, and then you'd have to send over a payment collection form, and then we destroy that when we get it. And that process was kind of a disaster. And it took me so long to realize how much time that actually was taking up, because I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years. It takes me 5 minutes to do that whole process. And it's really not that bad. But when I started to unpeel the things and understand what if we're automating some pieces of that, now that can go and automate other pieces. And that's where the really aha moment was,
Yeah.
because we'd get a proposal signed. I'd have to go create a project within our project management. I have to create the Zero account and go to all these different things. Where now when you're starting to make that proposal piece easy from the beginning, you can automate some of those later things that initially I wasn't thinking about. I was only thinking about the one problem on the surface level, not drilling down deeper and realizing, hey, there's more that this is saving outside of just the obvious one that time is being saved on.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because, a lot of the processes across the accounting sector, they can literally take 10 hours, and there are tools out there that can make it take 5 minutes. And I think it comes down to the practice actually taking the time to realize, okay, why is this taking 10 hours and what's actually out there that can make it take 5 minutes? Is there a process that Insight goes through when evaluating their business processes, or is it just on an ad hoc basis where, you might be sitting there doing a proposal on, a Word doc and you're like, this needs to be streamlined or this needs to be fast tracked? Or is it something that you and your team sit down on a monthly, quarterly basis to discuss?
Yeah, it's oftentimes every quarter we kind of look at, and we don't track anything we don't bill anything by time. But as part of that, we track time on everything that we do so that we kind of know where is our time being spent and where can we make that better. And as part of that, we kind of look at different areas, how much is being spent on administrative duties, and is there something that we can pull out of there? Or we look at a specific client and we're saying, hey, this client, the hours for this specific client really popped up last month. Why is that? And oh, it's a bank reconciliation thing, or we have Stripe and we're reconciling it manually. And
Mm.
so when you kind of dig into that, that's where you're starting to find some of these aha moments of, okay, we have a problem here. Now we don't necessarily know the solution yet, but we know that there's probably options out there for the solution. Let's start vetting them. And I think that that's the key part, is that there are so many different apps out there that do generally at a surface level the same thing, and it's really kind of testing those out, but then drilling down deeper to say, okay, at the surface level they're the same, but in reality they're not. And we see that a lot in integrations. So we'll test an app, and an integration with the software, our core, is really not great. Like, it does what it says it's supposed to do, but when we look into reality, we're still spending more time than we need to be, even with that integration. And so that is one thing that, even we don't just go into a software and be like, okay, this is our software. Our goal is to say, let's test this thing out in real life, and let's see what time are we saving from it, and do a direct comparison before and after. And if we're still saying like, that hour seems high, this seems like this could be so much more simplified, let's try to peel back the layers. And so I always say, and this goes with every problem or thing that's slowing down, is we want to get to the root cause, and more likely than not, that root cause is not the initial problem that you thought you had. You
Yeah.
think you have a problem with customer service, you might have no problems with customer service, but there's something else within your processes that is causing the problem with customer service. And so that is the hardest part, I think, is looking beyond that initial thing and trying to figure out what is actually behind the layers, like an onion, what's deep down into that core of what's going on. Well, why are we having this problem?
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point.